Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Quake Pro League, where I'm slap bang with one of my favourite people in the world, of course, ZSX, where we're going to be guiding you through the action once again here for week 6, Dan.
Hello, hello. It's really great to be back. It's a lovely day outside, but we're stuck inside casting some great Quakes, so I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, but the sun is still going to be shining on our hearts, Dan, from the
Oh,
gameplay we're going to be seeing. That's what matters.
yeah, it's very true. Expected some big results as we move further down the weeks, and every single match now becomes more important as those points begin to ramp up and the opportunity to get more lessons. So, yeah, everything's counts today.
Yeah, it really does. There's going to be some tight matchups going forward in the Quake Pro League, and we can have a closer look at those as well and get a bit more under the microscope. Obviously, now coming in on week 6, as you said, this is where points really do start to matter an awful lot because you physically just don't have that much time left inside of this stage, Dan.
No, not at all. And there are some interesting matchups today. By and large, the spread is quite large for the first part of the day, but then as we move further down the day, we're getting matchups that are very close in the leaderboard. So a 3-0 here or there can really shift the rankings quite a lot, particularly for those people in the lesser half of the table. For instance, we have Dramas versus Sib, which can push one of them right down into the relegation zone, which nobody wants. And even Toxic is sitting at 14th and going up against Avec and 10th. So again, a 3-0 for Avec there can put even someone like Tox in a little bit of trouble. So there are some quite important matchups as we'll see moving in. But obviously, starting with Cooler versus Fron, and Fron is one of those people who is in a little bit of trouble.
He is down at 19th place, which I don't really feel like is a position that represents him too well as well, because we know how good he can play and to
Yeah.
what pedigree he comes from. So hopefully there's a bit of improvement there. That's obviously going to be quite a hard game for him, as Cooler is still no joke at any point. Throughout
No.
his Quake career, he's always been such a big dog, and he still is.
It feels like he's kind of slipped off a tiny little bit since he got upset at Poland. It doesn't feel like he's found his groove just yet. And as you said, 19th for Fron, we say it doesn't represent him, and yes, it's true, it doesn't represent him, but he's just so inconsistent that it's really coming back to bite him now. As the quality has stepped up, I don't think he's really kept up with the progression of the rest of the league. So today is a very important time for him to pick up points, but he is one of the few players, despite his position, that can do something against Kula.
Yeah, potentially. Game 2 as well, ZenAku versus
Mm.
DaHanG. Could be a bit of an interesting one. ZenAku, obviously, still trying to tussle with the position he's in, being in Poland with the ping difference, but he was making it work. We've started to see a bit of an adaptation to his play style, playing a little bit more aggressive, quite reminiscent of Nosfer, of course, who's then going to
Hmm.
be there in Game 3 versus Dewey. Dewey's been doing well for himself, I must say. He's been looking like there's been a bit of an upwards trajectory.
Yeah, he kind of steadied the ship and has been developing his game a little bit more. Hasn't really moved in the leaderboards, but hasn't also been hugely upset by anybody. As we say week in, week out against Dewey, is that he will keep it close. And I think the only person I've seen steamroll Dewey is Rafa, which is pretty expected. So he's always tough to beat. And Nosfer's playstyle can certainly fall into that trap a little bit as well in his over aggression. And Dewey would like to kind of prey on that. So it's for me the challenge there is can Nosfer adapt the way he wants to play.
Our fourth game there with Sparty taking on Wenger. I physically can't wait to get us on that one on Awoken just to see what mad stunts Wenger and Sparty are both going to be pulling out. I feel like it should be quite a blast. And
100%.
then moving on through, Dan, into, of course, game 5, Dramas versus Sib. As you said, this is quite a tight affair. 15th and 17th, respectively, in the standings. It's pretty close to call, and it actually could start to finally build some distance between them both.
It could. Sib has obviously come in late this season, but has been building up his points, probably to the unexpected a little bit from the outside looking in. But he's definitely been performing exceptionally well. And Dramis has just kind of hovered around that lower mid-table when we were bigging him up, particularly end of season 2, start of season 3. Did reasonably well at Poland, and just one of those players again that just feels that he's on the cusp but hasn't moved an awful lot in recent weeks. I think he developed a huge amount in season 2 and plateaued a little bit since then. So definitely got the potential. Can he make the next step is the question for me.
Yeah, oh, only a matter of time until we find out the answer to those. Some great games coming up tonight, though. Game 7 as well should actually be a bit of a treat with Base versus Razy. If I'm not mistaken, that is obviously the elimination game when we saw Base get knocked out of the tournament back in Poland when he faced off
Yes.
versus Razy. So that actually could be quite a fun one.
Yeah, and I mean, he really struggled against Rezi in
He
Poland.
did,
I
yeah.
mean, everyone really struggled, but he particularly really struggled given how well he had played to that point. But again, this since Poland, similar to Kula, I would say, he's begun to drop a little bit in the leaderboards. I think he was working his way up towards top 5 earlier in the year, end of last season. Obviously, did exceptionally well in Poland, perhaps to the surprise of some people, maybe not
Hmm.
to the Russian community who know and love base, but again, since then, just steadily dropping points here or there, some of them that you might not have expected. Um, Needs to make a change to his game if he wants to get back up to the top end, but I don't expect him to do that against Razy.
Yeah, it's going to be so hard. Obviously, as good as Base is, and as much dominance as he showed over Poland, Razy and Rafa were his kryptonite. As soon as he
Mhm.
got into the server with them, it seemed like it fell apart. That play style just didn't work against people that had that. I don't know, that sort of understanding that was two steps ahead again. Classic to Rafa, and obviously Razy being able to bring that out to just catch him off guard.
Yeah, like his play style is obviously fairly defensive. He has more tools in his belt than that, but
Hmm.
that's the essence of it. And there are just some players who can overcome that. Razy is one of those. The way in which he finds angles of aggression and pathing, and his attack process and thought process is really unique. And Base wasn't able to cope with that. So that's why Base needs to make a big adjustment going up against Razy if he wants to even get a single map, in my opinion.
Yeah. And then finally, our last game of the evening will be Chain versus Saigib. Now, Saigib's actually been doing very, very well from himself, right? He's got a lot more stock behind him. I think we've seen
Mhm.
that upwards draft. People have had their eyes on him. However, he's going up against the opponent that was the first person we were really touting with that match, right? We said all these things about Chain. We were saying
Yep.
in Poland, big upset. He had a great land. He's come back. He's looking fresh. It seems like he's really trying to prove a point. So that one, in terms of a North American brawl, is going to be a bit of a toughie.
Yeah, it's probably one of the matches today that I'm really looking forward to, just because of the way they both play. It should be some fireworks going on there. But I think the most interesting thing is how Chain is just steadily crept up the leaderboards. There was a time, end of season 2, when we were commentating Chain saying he's got, as you rightly said, he's got everything. So why is he not pulling out results? And he was
Yeah.
languishing down in those 16th, 15th, and he's up in 8th. So that exceptional land result has definitely given him the momentum and confidence to play his more natural game, which I think he does really well in terms of his overall skill set and capabilities. So up against Cy Gibbs one of those people that's, again, he found his level a little bit. So,
Hmm.
but they can go toe to toe, and that's where Cy Gibbs will really come out strong against Chain, is matching his mechanical skill.
I'd agree with you. And based off you saying that as well, with the fact that Chain has slipped into 8th position, let's have a look where everyone else is. If we move on over to the global rankings, we can really give you a bit of a wider look on how everyone else has ranked up to this point after week 5, Dan. Rafa, of course, still miles ahead of everyone,
Hmm.
basically untouchable, as we say every week, because at this point he is just proving how much of a god he really is. Razy, firmly in 3rd position there with 270 points, 9
Yeah,
points behind Kilson. Is the interesting part, though. There is a chance, obviously, he could start to really push himself forward. Kilson isn't playing this week, so I believe he is on a bye. So you could actually see Razy really push himself deep into a 2nd place if he does well tonight versus Base.
100%, and that's where he deserves to be, in my opinion. He is the second best player in the world. I think he's slightly above Kilson overall in terms of the way he's been playing in the last few months, and so solidifying that 2nd position will be a big confidence boost for him. I think that these standings do play a role mentally, and so
Oh, yeah.
that'll be very good. I think there was a mistake in the previous. I think it said Tox was 14th, whereas he's 12th on here, so that's a little bit different, but as you say, yeah, that movement will be good. I think that top 5 is relatively stable. The one other shift we might see today is Wenger moving up against Kula. Again, Wenger, he's somebody who could be in that top 3 spot if he just refines his game even more than it needs to be. Because I think every single week we talk about how excited we are to watch Wenger and how amazing
Mhm.
Wenger is, but still needs to round it a little bit more. He's a kind of never the bride, as you like to say.
Oh yeah, never the bride, always the bridesmaid. And
Yeah,
I would agree with you on that as well because it seems like he is obviously kind of living in the shadow a little bit of Razy with the Maestro man. Them, it's always them two that sort of turn up as this dynamic too, especially at the LAN. They're always together, living at
yeah.
large. But it felt like that achievement he had with what the top four placement in Poland was top four, was it top five?
Yeah,
I think it was
I
top
think
four,
I think it was
right?
top four. Yeah,
Yeah, and it was just like that's such a good feat because he has all of that skill within him. Mechanically, he is
lost
sound
the
as
base,
hell.
right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
I remember speaking to him before that match. He was amazingly confident, um,
Mm,
but then obviously just didn't go his way on the day, and it's just there was that little spark that's missing, from separating the champions from the very best. And so
mm.
I do feel he's got it in him. The way in which he plays, it looks like he has championship material, but it's just that little killer edge, if you will.
Yeah, and then right below him, of course, Cypher, and I really feel like now is the time where we've been hyping it up a lot of sort of
Mm.
the return of Cypher, that he's been putting in the hours a lot more recently. You can see he has been back on that grind in arena FPS, trying to do as much as physically possible again, and I think that's paid off in terms of just him looking as crisp as he used to. He's ripping heads off again, Dan, and it's wonderful to see.
But he's got a week off this week, so
Mm,
he won't be
yep.
moving. If anything, he'll be going down. But yeah, you're completely right. Like, he's the one player everyone turns up to watch when he's on, and he's always the one to do something new and something different, despite having been out for so long. And he's slowly becoming the one to beat in the European scene. Um, it's just it's a good sight
And that actually could set up Chain to leapfrog him here potentially. I mean, he's not far behind in terms of the points, right? 188 to 182.
for sure.
If Chain does good this week versus Saigib, this could completely shake up our standings moving forward. All right, this could be quite a tasty week down at the mid portion.
Yeah, they're all really safe in that middle ground, but it's, as I said, mentally, particularly for someone like Chain to go above Cypher and to push on to Wenger. I mean,
Hmm.
that's a real statement for me to see how far he's come on, because we've just spoke so much about his potential. Almost feels like he's, in a way, the North American version of Wenger, just having that all around skill set, having that capability to take frags and maps off virtually anybody. And he's finally found his groove, finally got his confidence back. And yeah, he's one of my more favored people to watch nowadays.
Oh no, yeah. He is definitely enjoyable. It is very fun to
Hmm.
watch. And I can't wait to get underway with it all, to be honest with you. There's gonna be some bangers coming up tonight. Towards the bottom end, unfortunately for ZenAku, still is down the bottom in 20th place. Going up against DaHanG, it's never an easy ride as well, because DaHanG obviously
Mm.
the man's still got it in him, you know. He turns up, he does what he does best, Dan. And with ZenAku, obviously trying to deal with the issues as well that surround it, being an Australian in Poland, playing in the North American League, it's not the dream scenario for him.
I mean, it's something you can't skirt around because it plays such a big impact in
It does,
Quake,
yeah.
and it's going to mean not only does it impact his skill set, but he has to adapt his playstyle, and that's probably the most complicated and impactful feature of his current situation. Is, as you said, like when we first watched him, he was incredibly defensive, trying to skirt around the fact that he had this handicap, if you will, this slight deficiency. But I think he's now adapted a little bit more effectively, and it's good to see him returning ever so slightly to the ZenAku we saw on LAN.
Oh yeah. And that's a good talking point to actually branch us into this. What we're going to do, Dan, is we're going to go ahead and start with our second game of the night here with ZenAku taking on DaHanG. We're going to come back to Cooler versus Ron a little bit later. Um, let's start breaking this one down immediately. As you said, obviously in Poland, ZenAku, he had a good showing. And I think obviously the innate issue of that is the fact that that was on land. There would have been no issues with
Hmm.
really affecting his playstyle. As you touched on, Quake, so heavily skill based, so heavily based on your reaction time, how fast you can think. And obviously with that slight delay there, it might hold him back. Going up against DaHanG as well, someone that is like his brother in arms in Rafa from Liquid, always a couple of steps ahead. It could be such a killer in his momentum, in the fact that he can't make the split-second decisions he needs to potentially.
And DaHanG is probably the best player in the world at controlling the map on a fundamental level. Like
Mm,
his play style is, I know it's pretty easy to say, but firmly based around item timings. That every decision he makes, every attack choice he makes, every movement he makes is based on when the items are coming up and how he's going to play around that. And so having that as his foundation will make ZenAku's life very, very difficult, because against other players, you might be able to take free armors here or there
mm.
to kind of relieve the pressure, but DaHanG will be able to suffocate him off the map a little bit. And unless ZenAku has the capability to keep a degree of pressure up, which he didn't do last time I watched him, because of how passive he was playing, that will not work against DaHanG.
I mean, potentially the only good bit is with the veto, there could be a slight edge thrown his way. There could be a bone in there. You know, it looks like we're going into it on Awoken initially to start us off. He does have the Doom, a little bit more movement coming through. That is obviously the Nyx, though, for DaHanG.
Yeah.
He's naughty on a Nyx. He always has been.
Nyx is, I think we've spoken about in the past, Nyx is quite a difficult champion to play on Awoken, just because of how much pressure you can be put on. And obviously Doom is the most preferred champion on that
Mm,
map, given the skill set and the movement that he has to control that mid ground. But as you say, like a well-equipped Nyx, an efficient Nyx is going to be powerful on any map. Just the kind of overarching, should I say, um, skill win Ghost Walk is just incredibly powerful in
yeah.
duels. So, and DaHanG is one of the players to master that. So either way, it's going to be fairly balanced. It is a good opportunity for ZenAku to show us, can he be aggressive? Can he keep pressure up? Because Awoken is a map you need to do that on.
Oh yeah, and I mean we haven't even touched on it, but it's right there staring us in the face. The Strogan Pika over on Ruins for DaHanG. Now that is nightmare fuel. You know, that's like the sleep paralysis demon that you wake up to, and it's just DaHanG with his gunners on, just with a
Yeah.
Strog behind him. You're like, please don't do it, no.
Yeah, that is the stuff of nightmares right there. And when he's on form, there is very few players that can stop him on his Strogon Pika, and Ruins is a map you can really keep pressure on. I do like the BJ pick. It might have been in retaliation to that, because obviously you
Mhm.
have the fallback on him when you're under a lot of pressure. The dual wield is going to be an amazing tool to kind of relieve that slightly, and you can bring out some crazy comebacks and just turn the map on its head due to that. But it's also, with the Stroke and Pika, you have the movement advantage to get away. So you need to, on ZenAku's side, his positional game and awareness of DaHanG's movement needs to be on point, because otherwise he's going to find himself very quickly exploited, because the Blazkowicz cannot move around the map anywhere near fast enough to keep up.
No, that is very true. And finally, as per usual, a Molten to round us out. It's become quite a nice bookend to a lot of our series now, and
Yeah.
normally provides some fun things. Now, there is an Anarchy for ZenAku. That could be a little bit fun, a little bit of spice thrown in to round this one out potentially.
Yeah, and I think his picks across the board today show a little more confidence. Anarchy, you have to be confident on to be able to try and play him effectively. It is a very difficult champion to master, just
Mm.
because of how weak it is. And since the changes, how much easier it is to hit. Yes, you have the speed, but it's generally not enough to call it worthwhile. And Ranger is a pretty standard meta pick on any map now, just because of the overall utility that it brings to the table. So yeah, I mean, across the board, it shows to me that ZenAku is looking and feeling more confident. I hope he brings that through. I think he needs to be aggressive to stand a chance against DaHanG.
Let's find out then, Dan. We're in game on Awoken. We're going to be kicking this one off. DaHanG straight in. A little bit of a scuffle has gone down, but nothing too much to write home about. Dang.
Dang!
Dan. As he whips out the LG to try and start this one off. Nice amount of damage, actually. That's the first frag found 40 seconds in.
Not the best start for ZenAku, but
Not ideal.
not ideal. But you never know.
able to get the early control into the map, and this is really DaHanG's go-to. He'll try and lock it down, see what he can starve you out from, and if possible, restrict you from getting absolutely any items on the board. He's like a boa constrictor, but he's not as slivery.
It's a good analogy, I guess, but that's, yeah, definitely the way DaHanG loves to play, is just to absolutely exhaust all items and utility on the map. Nice aggressive Ghost Walk, doesn't pay off this time, but don't believe ZenAku heard it, so he still needs to play awfully careful.
It's the early chase going back over towards the heavy, which has just come up. ZenAku's going to drop down and make his move. Luckily, he's able to snatch it and give himself a little bit more armor to play with. But DaHanG is just bouncing around with this LG now, looking to really pack a punch and make this one quite a shocking affair.
Yeah, a little bit dangerous for ZenAku to just go around. He hasn't got the rail yet. That's got to be something he needs to put a bit more emphasis on. Because that's the one thing DaHanG is already trying to exploit, is just that range game, taking position advantage. Once again, he's got an aggressive Ghost Wall going out. He completely off guard. He even picks up the heavy as well, and that's a perfect example right there of the way in which DaHanG thinks about the game, because he timed that armor to absolute perfection. He knew that ZenAku was going to make a play, and used the Ghost Walk to the split second to make that work in his favor.
He is one of the sort of, I'd say, more top-end players that do like to use that aggressive Ghost Walk rather than purely just for a passive defensive play to escape, which is quite nice because you can pull off some really tasty things with it and give you a lot of map control if your opponent doesn't know where you are.
Yeah, I'm always a big advocate of using it aggressively, just because it eliminates, if you use it in the right way, your opponent will never have the information to react, and so it gives you the advantage all times. But you have to be confident in the way in which you're controlling the map to do it. So obviously, once you've used it, it's pretty much your only lifeline, so you need to be extremely confident and comfortable.
Stopwatch.
Mm.
Nice, probably ZenAku. Direct rocket, and the rails to follow.
Ooh.
Nice.
Oh, wow. That was smooth. A good adjustment.
Like,
yeah, that's a whole lot better, right? You can see, obviously, he's on the ball today.
DaHanG. Smart play by DaHanG, knowing that's the most common spawn, so not pushing in, he would have got railed. But ZenAku now has good control. Good split on the items as well.
Once again, though, trying to make his move around, restock himself as he scavenges all the items he wants to work with. Let's get his arsenal a bit better. Rail back in his hands and looking to try and poke and prod with the weapon. ZenAku faces towards the tri-bolt, but luckily does dash back. Coming around the corner through the porter, though, will take a bit of damage straight to the face, as they do calm down for a second as we hit the 4-minute mark now down.
Yeah, and ZenAku's doing a great job of maintaining control over them in the ground, because that's the one thing DaHanG has in his advantage, if he can get there, is to make sure that he keeps pressure on ZenAku's item pickups, because now since ZenAku's got the frag, DaHanG hasn't had a look in on any items. He has caught him here though, and has to Ghost Walk away, but that is now going to be a defensive Ghost Walk as he can't do anything. ZenAku, realizing there is no backup with the Ghost Walk, is going to put on some pressure. DaHanG does a relatively good job of getting away so far.
Yeah, that was the prime opportunity as well, right? As soon as that Ghost Walk goes on a long cooldown, you know you can strike quite as hard as possible. If you get to the frag there, it would have been absolutely happy days. Put it on a 2-2 scoreline, and he could have really started to force himself deeper into this one. Unfortunately, Ghost Walk now nearly back up, but this is still going to go well. DaHanG, he's got to go down, and it'll be the super shotgun to finish him. I thought he was going to get away there. The sneaky man.
You can already see the weakness of Nyx on this map is that once you lose control, you're so vulnerable, because he used that Ghost Walk and the pressure was relentless. ZenAku was able to go around, pick up both items and get back into DaHanG's face just because of how small this map is. And with the Doom, he can get around just as quick as the Nyx. So far ZenAku, we said he needs to keep pressure on, and that's what he's doing, is DaHanG gets ringed out and ZenAku takes the lead with 4.5 minutes to go.
That is rough. It's not a great way to go down, but it is going to be heaven for ZenAku. He's going to be so happy with the way this has started to develop. Coming up to 6 minutes, he's got a 1 frag advantage, but this could be where he falls. Luckily enough, the LG It pays off. He
It
cuts
does.
his way through DaHanG.
DaHanG is really struggling. ZenAku is just unrelenting with his pressure. He's not backing down from any time that DaHanG is making the push because he's got perfect rotation on the items. DaHanG hasn't got the stack to do anything. Yes, ZenAku survived with 11 HP, but because he had great timing on the heavy armor, and because DaHanG had no stack to work with, ZenAku came out on top, and now he's got a good lead. He is out of the rail though, and that's something he's been using very well. So he needs to get back over and get some armor. Get some ammo, which he does very well, and is able to get in position for this mega health.
Nice entry. He's going to be able to do a nice amount of damage, but the response from DaHanG is incredible. The rail coming through, weapon prioritization through the roof there as he'll punish ZenAku. Now that is going to be crippling as well. If he would have won that fight, there could have been so much more coming for the Australian All-Star. Instead, now he gives DaHanG his stack back. He's going to start to be able to build from this. He's not going to starve out that light champ anymore, and he equalizes the scoreline.
Yeah, I mean, all that stemmed from is a slightly poor execution in the first instance from ZenAku, and now he's on the run as DaHanG realizes he's got no weaponry to work with. He can go in for a very easy kill, and that's painful because it's just before the mega and just before the heavy, and now ZenAku will have nothing to work with to get in position to do any damage for this heavy, so the next minute or so is going to be crucial for ZenAku's lifeline in this map. And all DaHanG needs to do is play carefully. He doesn't really need to use his Ghost Walk aggressively anymore. Just do the basics.
Though, going to go round for the turn. Back over by the LG room. Gets a nice rail off. As he will try and really put the pressure on ZenAku. There isn't too much time left in the game. This could be a further frag found as well, though, as he's peeking out, firing down those rockets. Near misses with the rail. And he's going to call it quits, make his move back over towards the heavy as it's just spawned in. Knowing this, I mean, there is enough of a split on the item timing, though. Potentially, ZenAku should set up for the mega.
We can see the way in which DaHanG is now playing these fights. He's adjusted massively since the opening of the game. His respect, that is a clutch Ghost Walk. But I was about to say, his respect for ZenAku has definitely changed as he's now being far more conservative in the way in which he's using the Ghost Walk, in the way in which he's moving and positioning in these fights. I think he's learned that he can't just bully ZenAku.
He's definitely switched it up a little bit compared to what I saw earlier. Into the first few minutes of the match. Nice rail though through the murder hole, and that is a clean follow-up to net himself a 6 frag into this game. Really, only about 60 seconds left as well on the clock, and this is not great for ZenAku. He's got to restock himself and build that arsenal back up and still find 2 frags at minimum to take this one to a sudden death.
Yeah, I mean, it is last shot saloon now. He needs to make all his play for this heavy armor. And DaHanG is just chipping away at him because ZenAku doesn't have a rail, and DaHanG knows it. Boss to the face, but that super shotgun will be his downfall. Really impressed. We said that ZenAku needed to pick up the aggression and make these big plays, and he wasn't afraid to do so. There was a few times where he felt a little bit lackadaisical in his defensive play. A couple of times DaHanG got an easy rail off and then an even easier follow-up, so a little bit careless, I would say. But apart from that, it was a pretty flawless game from ZenAku.
It was nice. Unfortunately for him, it seems like DaHanG is just trying to end this one out with a few more style points from the LG. As I believe our final scoreline for Awoken here will be an 8-4 split. DaHanG walking away as the victor. A lot of it just comes down to that one play on the mega, really, for me. I think that could have been such a big turning point for ZenAku to really assert dominance on the map if it had gone differently.
Yeah, and it was just execution, really. He had the right positioning, he even hit the opening shot, but DaHanG was relentless. By that point, he'd picked up, I think he just picked up the heavy just prior to the engagement, so he had a decent fighting stack. ZenAku wasn't entirely healthy because there was a fight just before that, and it could have gone either way, as you say, but it was fortunate for DaHanG that his execution in that moment was better. And since that point, DaHanG slightly adjusted the way he was approaching the game. He played slightly more conservative, stuck to the basics, and was able to then just keep enough pressure on ZenAku to win out the map.
Yeah, just went back into more of his quite respectful play style
Yeah,
rather than,
exactly.
having to take unnecessary fights, which is fair enough. As soon as he's actually shown that, he can bleed, it's like, all right, well, let's just take a step back. No point throwing this one away and losing a map. Moving on now to Ruins, the second map in the series. That's going to be BJ versus Strog. We can't talk about it any more than we physically have, right? Strog and Pika for DaHanG. This man is an absolute lunatic on this champ. He just shows no signs of weakness. Basically, individually thrust it back into the meta, so we know he's well versed.
I'm always a bit fearful when you have such a mismatch in terms of movement capability.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that you can get exploited and you're very vulnerable, and it requires a much higher level of execution, a much higher level of mental awareness to be able to pull off this type of matchup. You need to almost play Dewey-esque in some situations and make sure your positioning is very, very much on point, because particularly with the BJ, you're so reliant on that ultimate ability that once that's not up, Strog and Pika can just run riot on you. And even when that is up, he can just get away pretty easy unless you use it in the right situation to corner him. So it is a very difficult matchup to execute, and we'll have to see what ZenAku does.
Well, we're going to be able to get underway with this one very shortly. Ruins of Sarnap is our second map. Hopefully, he's got a little bit more fight left in him on the BJ. He needs to bring out some different flavor onto the server. We're straight in, though. Starting off on DaHanG here.
ZenAku is just delaying that mega health as well. As we can see, it still has not been picked up. DaHanG will not be aware of that. But without knowing timing anyway, I don't expect him to have an overcommittal. It's not an uncommon tactic to delay on the off the top, so DaHanG obviously playing very carefully, scouting around to try and pick up the weaponry he needs, whereas ZenAku gets himself an easy heavy. But with that knowledge, DaHanG will be able to keep a good position on this mega. You can see without knowing that timing, just plays carefully around that point.
That was a nice bit of poke damage, though, with the Pika alone. Oh, and a good follow-up rail to really start to chunk his way through. He's confident enough to go for the fight with the sheer momentum of this man as he bombards his way past like an absolute lunatic. They are both trading blow for blow, Dan. Somehow they're still standing. I'm not sure how they're even breathing at this point, but it's going to be the rocket from ZenAku that will find the opening frag of the game.
Yeah, I mean, unnecessarily aggressive for DaHanG to push in. He could have just let ZenAku get away with that heavy. But either way, he is healthy now and healthy enough to push in onto ZenAku. You can already see how difficult it is for ZenAku. He's the one in control, but DaHanG is all over him because of that speed advantage.
He is hitting some fabulous shots right now. The amount of damage he's done there from those two peaks is miraculous. He's left him with not too much stack whatsoever. He's forced to scavenge those bubbles to barely replenish himself to stay alive. He's being chased down by a Pika, faces back over towards the mega room, and just DaHanG's presence alone was enough to force him back.
Oh, ZenAku's rail has been on point since the start of this series, and it's going to have to be if he's going to have a lifeline in this match.
The issue is, though, I'd say the same about DaHanG. The amount of times we've heard this BJ scream, you'd have think he'd have gone down by now, but he's still alive, still kicking.
DaHanG not wanting to overcommit. He wanted a clean frag. ZenAku did a good amount of damage there, but he did die just before the mega, and he did not get the best spawn, so DaHanG gets away very, very cleanly. He can put some serious pressure onto ZenAku now.
No, it was a great read. Like, he was ready for it. He knew it was coming. It's just unfortunate that, obviously, the bit of damage he didn't stop. DaHanG finding himself a pick. And now, coming up to 3 minutes, it's 1-1 apiece. Double LG comes through from ZenAku. You got to get out of that Pika quickly, or you might find yourself shocked out of this one. DaHanG is being torn to shreds. Left with 27 stack. He's forced to fall back. Fires out the rocket. Could have been a midi. But unfortunately, the gods weren't on his side.
Fortunate by ZenAku. Reds DaHanG's movement, just didn't get the right position coming out the teleporting. DaHanG does get away. And he's been caught here. He is low as well, so ZenAku gets a very clean frag.
He nutmegged ZenAku and then got blown to bits. That is unfortunate. This is
DaHanG
great,
not
though,
looking-
for ZenAku.
Yeah, it is. DaHanG's not looking his crispest, but ZenAku's playing as well as he needs to. Nice rail, his
Ooh.
rail. Once again.
My goodness, that was crisp.
And
Absolutely
all
unliable
pressure
right now.
onto that heavy. Essentially winning him a very clean, free heavy armor. DaHanG's on the back foot. Can't even contest for Mega.
Stopwatch.
Oh, this is the dream scenario for ZenAku. He's starting to get major items. He's doing enough chip damage from a distance to leave DaHanG a bit broken, so when they do have to commit for a fight, he's got the advantage. This could be huge as well. Rocket after rocket, until DaHanG's got no fuel left in his tank.
No, ZenAku's playing spot on at this point in time.
Oh, the gauntlet, you cheeky man!
Stopwatch.
That's
Only
bold
3
and
frags.
brash.
ZenAku's got a good rotation in these items, 15-second split. Gives him plenty of time to set up, scout the area, and the basics is all he needs to do. Don't overcommit, don't get out of position, make sure you're securing items as well as you can, and this time he's out of position, meaning DaHanG is able to get into this Mega. And that will be the signal for DaHanG to keep the pressure up.
The mid-air peak of
Oh, that's a bit too obvious, ZenAku.
Master.
Ooh. He has been able to get out. DaHanG is chasing though. Straight up bounce pad. Double LG. Is he accurate enough to be able to use it now? Oh, 4 HP. One more tick from the LG and that was it. DaHanG was done.
Yeah, he did so much damage, and we can see the power of ZenAku's aim, even on this elevated ping. Mechanically, he's up there with the very best.
He's been proving that he's got an awful lot to fight for, and that he wants to show the level of damage he can do here in the Quake Pro League. Now, he does have a 2 frag advantage.
Stopwatch.
There's about 4 minutes left into this map as well. And DaHanG's the one that's going to need to set the pace. He has to get back into it. Unfortunately, being on the Strog and Pika, if he gets control of the Mega here, he'll be able to breeze himself in to try and take the fight.
And you can see what ZenAku's doing is that he is playing around choke points because he knows he hasn't, as we said, he hasn't got the ability to match DaHanG in speed, can't be caught out in the open. So as soon as he picks up any items, he's running straight back into these choke point situations. That's where he's getting DaHanG and catching him. DaHanG is keeping up the pressure and should be able to get a frag. Yes, it's not clean, but is a frag just before the heavy. ZenAku gets a good spawn. He might be able to pick up the Mega, which he does.
It's just the annoyance as well, the crouch slide, the sheer speed that DaHanG's got into any of these encounters he goes into, right? He's just making it so hard for ZenAku. And adding extra layers of pressure on top of what would be there already. A bit of a kerfuffle between them both. They do a nice amount of damage, and this is where one of them is surely going to have to go down. ZenAku taking the majority of the damage from the rockets, finished off by the super shotgun, and it is now tied 4 apiece.
Yeah, and you can see, as I said, in terms of, I guess, the champion selection, the game is just easier for DaHanG. His utility is much better than ZenAku's. ZenAku needs to play perfectly, whereas DaHanG can make mistakes and still get away with it.
Master.
It's the sheer speed, right? It's the fact he can initiate so quickly, but he can escape in an instant if he needs to as well. Talking of initiating, there it is.
2 rails, then he's already on top of him, whereas ZenAku wouldn't have the capability to do that. And the thing is, obviously, being Strog and Pika, you've still got a good fighting stack to follow that up as well. So you can hit your rails and follow in whilst being quite tanky. It's such a deadly combination.
Seemed like it was going to be the rail from the rear. Instead, it's a rocket that goes down.
Nice
Battle of
rocket.
the LGs. Now ZenAku is doing enough damage to keep himself contending.
He would have killed DaHanG if he hit that rail as well, so it was super unfortunate for ZenAku. But DaHanG hits a nice rail from above. It's 2 minutes to go, this isn't over. Nice use of the dual wield there. ZenAku has no weapons, and without a dual wield, DaHanG knows he's got his prey cornered as he will fly over to that jump pad. ZenAku hearing him drops back down, but this is just wasting time as ZenAku still has nothing to work with beyond the rail now.
DaHanG
Impressive.
primed and ready with a railgun. The amount of hits he's had with this bad boy already is quite worrying for how this series is going to go on, carrying on as well, because he's looking devilish. He's got him trapped as well, Dan. Stuck in a corner. ZenAku, this really isn't going to go well for him.
No, but DaHanG wants a clean frag here. He doesn't want to have to commit. That's why we see him backing off. And as soon as he sees that ability come out, as soon as he gets a clean frag, he knows this map is over.
Well, we use the
And
super
that should
shotgun
be
to
it.
make it easy.
Yeah.
7-4. The likelihood of anything coming through from ZenAku is already way too far gone, especially when his body is going to go flying through the porter, railed down to the ground, and it will be a 4-frag advantage at the end here. DaHanG, it seems, wants one more with a shotgun. Why not? Take it to 9.
And I think, yeah, the story of that map comes back to me is the picks. We know how powerful DaHanG is on Struggle Picker anyway.
Mm-hmm.
To pick a champion with limited utility against that is always going to be tough. And ZenAku played some great Quakes for 5-6 minutes of that map. He even had a long period of control. And yet we saw how easy it was for DaHanG once he had control to overcome ZenAku. And he was being outgunned for large portions of that matchup. So it just goes to show how important having a clear strategy against your opponent is in terms of picks and how you want to play the map.
Yeah. I mean, the issue is as well, in terms of actual like major item pickups, it wasn't that heavily favored towards DaHanG. It was nicely enough split that obviously you could see there was moments where ZenAku was in control. He was able to build from that. But as soon as you give DaHanG an in, that's where he's just going to run away with it. It's the sheer speed of Strog. The rotations are so fast. He can get from the heavy to the mega and cycle it out over and over again. It's also, as you were saying, with the intros with the railgun, right? ZenAku would land a rail, but he couldn't follow it up. There was no way he could chase him down. Whereas DaHanG, he could do that, but also escape when he needed to.
Exactly. So to play to win that matchup, you need to have perfect awareness of over your opponent's movements, over the timing, and then your positioning. So it's whereas when you have that speed, you can get in positions faster, you can capitalize upon your opponent's mistakes faster, you can follow up on your own good work faster and better. And overall, it just makes your life far easier. And then, as I said, if you make a mistake or if you're caught out of position, generally you've got the speed to get out of that position. So yeah, overall, it was very hard from the offset for ZenAku, and he did his best, but I just felt it was a step too far.
Yeah, it was never going to be an easy ride. And it is unfortunate because I think in both of the maps already, he's proven that there is moments where you can see the natural talent and the raw understanding really shine through, right? But
once again, there was 2 or 3 times where DaHanG was pushing in and had to either back off or died because he overestimated or underestimated how powerful ZenAku's aim was going to be in those situations. And ZenAku is definitely learning how to play around his deficiency with the ping in the way he sets up fights. He's now, I think in the first couple of weeks we watched him, he wasn't trying to take any fights whatsoever. He would avoid confrontation. Whereas now he's learning the positions where he can set up to deal maximum damage. There was a few times he just, as I said, set around choke points, around these doorways where he can go mano a mano, and ping essentially doesn't matter. Slightly, if you get out in your opponent, you get out in your opponent. And so making the most out of the situations is what ZenAku is starting to do really well. But we are moving on to Molten, where those mano-a-mano fights are less prevalent. It's more about picking your opponent off at range and setting up and taking those fights in and around the major items. So there's a lot more traps to be had here as well, which could work in ZenAku's favor. Once again, I'm a little bit fearful for the Anarchy, but it's I'm interested to see what he does with it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one benefit, at least this time around. He's going to one that has the speed. He is going to be quick on his feet there on the Anarchy, but the Ranger's always got that dire orb.
The difference is, and as I said, I always favor the person with a slight speed advantage, but the thing about the Ranger, as you said, is 1, the dire orb, and 2, the passive with the rocket jump. You have a lot more utility to get around the map, making you more effective against these type of champions. So you can get out of bad situations and things like that. And that's what the BJ just didn't have.
Yeah. As much as it's effective, obviously, you can bust out that akimbo. The dual wield can be so prevalent at being able to force people off major items, but if you just can't get anything going in terms of the actual frags, you're not going to win the game. At the end of the day, that is the commodity. And we are in, though, here on Molten. ZenAku versus DaHanG one final time tonight. There is a potential for a 3-0 here, which would be amazing for DaHanG.
Yeah, it would be. He's not somebody that needs a lot of points, and he is playing against the person who's last in the leaderboards, so it's more of a day at the office for DaHanG. Dropping a map would be far more impactful on his confidence than anything else. But at the minute, he doesn't look particularly stressed, even though ZenAku's putting up a very tough fight. We can already see a good aggressive use of the die roll coming out as DaHanG pushes in to pick up a relatively clean kill off the bat, and can rotate around to pick up the Mega.
Already starting to get things going then, as he's opened this one up very early on into our final map in the series. He's perched on a ledge with the rocket in his hands as well, fires it down to spook ZenAku, and also do a nice amount of damage to strip that heavy that he had just picked up clean off him.
Absolutely, and getting that chip damage without return as a light champion is always going to put you in a losing position, as you're already vulnerable, so you need to make the most of any situation you have to deal damage.
DaHanG's already started on his warpath of taking up all of the items and hoovering them straight into his back pocket. Now a minute and 30 in. He's waiting, locking down the middle of the map, playing for the audio cues as he's just looking down, attempting to figure out exactly what ZenAku is up to. Nice drop down with the rocket, spamming it round the corner, does peek into the tri-bolt and takes quite a lot of damage there.
Yeah, he has taken a lot of damage to the point where he shouldn't be really competing for this heavy armor, he will die. ZenAku, slight mishap with the rocket to start with. Good use of the Dorob to get away, but he's still in a very vulnerable position. ZenAku is going to go aggressive. Can't finish off DaHanG just yet as he sneaks away with only 10 health.
That is so unfortunate. That's one of those that's going to stick with you. Frustrating early on into the game. Should have been the free frag there for ZenAku. He did everything perfectly, hit the rail, left DaHanG nearly at death's door, but he just couldn't quite take him down. Now, DaHanG reset both of them in better positions in terms of their stack. ZenAku starting to get control of the map, though, here on Molten. He's got both of the major items this rotation down, but he could be walking into his demise if that rocket lands.
Ooh. Good rocket by DaHanG to stem any potential pressure from ZenAku, but not enough to win him any items as he just sets up to try and deal a rail. Realizes he has been heard, backs up. Good respect coming out from DaHanG here, but he feels in a more confident position to deal some damage here. But ZenAku hits a good return rail, but this time not wanting to put in through that choke point. Instead sets up on the high ground.
Dang. Again, playing for audio cues, looking through the wall, trying to get that clear sound of where ZenAku is going. Where he's rotating off to. Makes his move back over. That'll be an easy pickup on the light. 20 seconds until the Mega's up, though. So right now he's in a bit of an off position. This will give ZenAku the heavy for free down. And all DaHanG can do right now is set up for a later play.
No, it's not the end of the world for DaHanG. Stack is not particularly huge for Anarchy at the moment.
Ooh.
But receiving at rail is bad for DaHanG as he's just lost the last minute and a half's worth of work. We can see how trepidatious DaHanG feels at the moment, hanging around and just running away as fast as he can. ZenAku does smell blood, but decides to back up and keep his rotation strong.
DaHanG really starting to be starved for major items, though. This could be huge for ZenAku. If he can get an opening frag on the board and maintain this level of control with the sheer speed that he's got going on the Anarchy, then potentially this is his in on Molten. They are going to duel here. Over control of the heavy. The peak comes round with the LG. Rockets whizzing by. He gets it. But can he stay alive through this? Spooks ZenAku out of there. He's forced to retreat as he breezes his way back over towards the Mega.
Impressive.
Takes a rail straight to the face, but the return from DaHanG is even better. ZenAku nearly taken down by that, left almost lifeless.
Yeah, ZenAku's in a lot of trouble. He's just spent 3 minutes running the map, keeping pressure on DaHanG, but couldn't convert. Now DaHanG, let's see what he can do. He's got control back now, perfect control. Picked up both major items. ZenAku's still struggling, just picking up his first light armor. He was available for quite a long period of that time.
Himself skyrocketing across back over towards the Mega spawn, picks it up just as it comes up. Both of them actually fairly on close stacks, but that's going to be the stack not clean off. The follow-up rail is dirty as well. That is incredible. This man is pixel sniffing.
He's hit some amazing angles today, and that was one of the best. Okay.
The Shub Slayer as he telefrags him. That is not the dream scenario for ZenAku. Oh, it's happened so late into the game as well, Dan. It might only be a 2-frag lead, but it's really going to be a big exclamation mark here.
I think this entire map is a perfect example of the difference in experience between the two. ZenAku had control for 4-5 minutes of the map and couldn't convert, and as soon as DaHanG wins back control through smart play by pressuring on the high ground, he's able to convert instantly by reading the pathing of his opponent.
Coming at you.
That's a nice use of the dire orb, hits ZenAku with a good rocket, meaning he has to scurry away. Can't even dream of doing damage now. Very much on the ropes now. You need items as ZenAku.
He has to get something.
Big starved.
Huge to get him back into the game, but there's no potential for that unless, as you said, he gets those major items on the board, and this is the roughest way possible for things to go. DaHanG charging in, using absolutely everything for the controlled aggression. He wanted the Mega. He had to fight tooth and nail for it, but it worked. ZenAku, too timid to fight. Hits a direct to at least put DaHanG back into a mortal position. Shakes it off.
Yeah, not happy with his execution there. It was just, you could tell what he wanted to do. He knew he had done a pressure up. He has caught him down in this side corridor. It's a lot of damage for ZenAku, but still with DaHanG with nothing to work with, is in himself in a very precarious situation. ZenAku hitting that rail, knows he's got his opponent really nearly dead. It's a good follow-up, but just not enough on the rail.
You might be able to win this one purely just off these 2 frags if it carries on in this manner. ZenAku just can't find an in at the minute. 10 seconds till Mega's back up. 15 until Heavy will spawn. DaHanG has the rail, and he's still landing sickeningly good shots with it. This man is on point today.
Yeah, and ZenAku now needs to really mix up the way he's playing. Slightly predictable on his movement, his rotation. DaHanG putting a lot of pressure on making sure he does get that item. Ooh. But at what cost as he sneaks away with less than 10 health combined? ZenAku now knows he's got his opponent very weak. 1 frag to go.
Stopwatch.
And there's still enough time. 60 seconds. It's only 1 frag. It is doable. But he's still being starved out for items, although this could be it right here as he tries to take the firefight instantly. A little bit of damage done. A small sliver of health knocked off DaHanG. Paranoia sets in from as well as he tries to lock down towards this mid position. Here's ZenAku flying around and knows he can reposition safely towards the rail room.
Yeah, and you can see DaHanG using the audio cues to make sure he's away from his opponent. Always make sure he's got the better starting position if there is going to be an engagement, because all he needs to do is defend his lead, obviously. What can ZenAku do? I think he knows where his opponent's just been heading. He heard the rocket as well.
ZenAku, he's so low, he's lucky to even escape at this point, but escaping doesn't matter if he can't find a frag. It's the last 10 seconds of the game, he has to fully commit, and that is it, unfortunately for him. Caught by DaHanG. Hook, line, and sinker, he will fall 3-1. DaHanG will take it in a 3-0 fashion, winning the series here on Molten, beating out the Australian All-Star, Dan.
We expected a 3-0, but that was so much closer than I imagined it was going to be. And ZenAku has stepped up his game massively. Every one of those victories for ZenAku was hard fought. For DaHanG was hard fought. ZenAku had a clear strategy across the board. I felt that he got slightly outpicked, at least on the second map, but overall, his aim was on point. He's definitely adjusted to the new conditions. And strategically, he's come on a lot as well in previous weeks. So really nice to see him stepping up his game.
Yeah, I mean, I think Molten is the only one where it seemed like there was somewhat of a route that was easy enough for DaHanG to actually decipher and know how to counter him. The rest of the maps, he was actually keeping on his toes enough. He was dynamic enough in his play style that DaHanG wasn't able to easily get a read on him. And it did take a lot out of DaHanG in terms of having to go, okay, I need to slow down my play style, reassess this, and then go from there.
Yeah, you saw DaHanG make multiple adjustments across all maps. And that's all credit and respect to the way in which ZenAku was playing. Didn't feel that DaHanG was pushed massively out of his comfort zone. It was all pretty another day at the office in the way in which he was playing, but it was respectful. I guess the last point for me is the fact that there was a clear difference and it's obvious, but in the experience, the way in which DaHanG was able to control the map, and it was almost felt like it was his tempo. It was like now's the time I want to make something happen, and he made it happen. Whereas ZenAku, every frag he was getting was either a mistake from DaHanG or B, really ground out. So it was a clear difference in experience that really shone through, particularly on the last map.
Yeah, always the uphill battle for ZenAku, unfortunately. But obviously, time will tell how things will go. He's only been in the Pro League for 6 weeks, and he does look better every week.
Definitely.
Now, we are going to be moving on to the game we originally had scheduled for the start of tonight's show, down once we return from the break. That will be Cooler versus Ron. But before that, before this week's game with ZenAku, we had Freya catch up with him a little bit and get some of the insight of how he feels generally, obviously competing from Europe and playing inside of the Quake Pro League. So let's check that out.